So, I was reading a quote from the Zohar in the Chayenu, which is like a Lubavitch Chabad Jewish publication that puts together interesting noises from the heat right now. But anyway, it puts together like weekly learning. So they say there's 7 levels of purgatory, chambers of the 7 levels, which is Gehenna or hell. Bar Sha'on, which is the pit of raging water. Be'er Shechat, which is the well of destruction. Duma, which is silence. Tit Hayavin, which is slimy mud. And they have Sheol. And they have Salmavis, which is shadow of death. And then they have Eretz Tachtit, the underworld. Dennis Agbeti says that your spouse has 75% of what you want. Let's say it lacks 25% of what you want. Do you become restless? Noticing the 25% in someone else, and suddenly your spouse feels small, inadequate, not enough. Mistake is trade the solid, proven 75% for the shiny, exciting, attractive, different 25%. Reality sets in after a while that the 25% wasn't the full package. We can tend to overvalue what we lack and undervalue what we already have. Missing the piece becomes louder than the abundance we already enjoy, and overlooking our spouse's faithfulness because someone else seems more fun. This is when we take our spouse's kindness for granted and dismiss the spouse's stability. Someone else seems more romantic or ambitious. No human can give you the 100%. Everyone lacks something and falls short somewhere, and so chasing the 25% that's missing will ruin the solid 75%. What makes the marriage work is will ruin the 75% that makes the marriage work. Wisdom is nurturing the 75, managing the 25 with grace, patience, and communication. And foolishness is throwing away the 75 to chase the illusion of a perfect 100. The cycle of throwing a spouse away for missing 25%, discovering that the new person also lacks 25%, if not more. That's what it leads to. So instead of chasing shadows, open your eyes to what treasure you already have. Appreciate, water, and cherish and protect and celebrate the 75. The grass is greener where you water it, as they say. So I wanted to workshop this in my therapy with my therapist, Amanda Young. We talked about how, like, my unprocessed grief, my family, my romance, but, like, in other words, the hell that I feel like men have sent me to. So, like, in my relationships, like, in terms of spouse. So, this, the prisoner has no will of their own, and this can and thus cannot express authentically and honestly. I felt like what I really needed was skills, social support, and meaning, and I pushed down a lot with Michael because I didn't want to lose or give up on potential, or maybe because I thought I could make up for lost time. I realized I'm very sensitive to loud voices. I need a lot of peace and quiet, my time and space, and even in terms of listening versus making it about me. When I get overwhelmed, I might keep making it about me. Expecting compliance but refusing to comply, and in my family, everyone dissolved, became like an island, and I learned how to repress the disagreeable parts, but they came up eventually where I could finally make choices to have, to gain power and preserve. Like, as a kid, I felt like because I never won, like, I never was able to win, to be the winner. So, like, my reality was oppression, not freedom. And my mother didn't protect me. I couldn't protect my sisters from myself, my father. Or, like, in other words, one sister, I couldn't protect her from the other sister, my father, my mother. And I see some of my father in me, sometimes more than I want. And when it's like the challenges in the wrong fit in the consciousness, it's like enlightened somatic integration, the self-reflection, in order to forgive my father before he dies. And this is like relationship to understand. There's my own inner voices, and because a lot of self-hatred from my mother's values, and also like my sister, and the expectations, the double standards, the hard work to break the predictability. Like, routines feel safe. For example, even being a night owl feels safe, even though it might not be so healthy, like for my dad. And then I'm not sure what's good for me. And so, like, sometimes just, because of my dad having the blind spot, like, learning to not engage with, because let's say somebody who feels like home, or like my dad, but actually they're not healthy, so it's like a strength that looks like weakness, giving in, not getting the last word. Also, like, in terms of, let's say, Aaron, somebody who, in this way of not having the capacity to understand me or my feelings, reminding me of my dad. Unfortunately, I met someone else who I felt could understand my feelings, but used my feelings to hurt me. So maybe, in a way, it's like, well, do I want the one who doesn't understand my feelings at all, can't feel related to, or do I want the one who can understand them and then hurts me with them, like uses it as a weapon? It's hard to tell. So I want to share two more parts. So there's this class called Inner Fire I go to from the transmitting. It's transmitted by Mila Shneiderman, transmitting Kuntres Hahispalus course, which is by the Mitteler rebbe, the Lubavitch rabbi. So when we're in appearance or self-association, that's not the true self. And when we move from limited to unlimited, it's like we could begin a new expression of our personality or character or traits, because we don't really know ourselves. How the teachers, the parents saw us, we try to become who they expect and wanted me to be. And yet I could be open to see and learn and become, like Adam and Chava became self-conscious, which is not the same thing as consciousness. So it's like this inadequacy of being naked. When we actually become present and available to the true experience, we don't owe anyone an apology for finding our way home to the true self. We're always regenerating. There's an inheritance of the Torah that's accessible to anyone and a part of me. So we close this gap, the division which is like watching the self versus a part of experiencing, versus being a part of, like actually experiencing, which is the prerequisite, like, to judging if it's good and bad, including predictions, when we have that gap, right? Which is when we're watching ourselves. So it's like the gap between experiencing and watching myself experiencing. So there's this like othering almost, and that's the depth. And then it's like whether in terms of authenticity, like reconciling reality of the perfect and imperfect me. So our authenticity is when we're able to express that real version of ourselves. And if we're being our true self, then we can reconcile the version of us that's quote unquote the perfect one, and also the version of us that's like the imperfect one. So the parts are all equal in the whole. That's the depth of the Yechida, which is where it's coming from, the knowledge of, like, is it coming from the tree of knowledge of good and evil or the tree of life? And it's like there's no privilege or automation. We don't need to overcompensate. And it's like the mistakes are part of the growth. We don't mistake the stimulation for relevance, and we don't forget that there's a destination to the journey when we fall short or when we fall, and that we're chiseled, hewn from our ups and downs, are in the opposition, because success we know is inevitable. We could be soothed, like and so I went to workshop this in a 12-step meeting, and there's so many different ones. You can go to like for food, you can go to for alcohol, right? They have like every kind. So I was like thinking more about this grief over the family, and then never got over romance and honesty, that I didn't feel chosen. That was really what it was. Even just by not choosing the real me, I couldn't even help others to choose their real self. And if I was meant for somebody who couldn't choose the real self, they couldn't choose the real me, it was almost like not quite punishing myself and them, but just like not being like the best version of myself. Because the vessels and the light, God loves to fill up the vessels of light. Like, so it's like if I didn't create the vessel, like I wasn't able to feel chosen, because I wasn't choosing myself. I didn't even know what it felt like to feel chosen, or I didn't believe that I could be chosen or that someone would choose me. So in terms of taking action, not only food actions, but like gratitude versus a bad attitude, like holding the bigger picture helps me to heal the ravenousness, which is like this black hole. So it's like the parents, it makes me think of the raven. The parents didn't recognize the child, but it's kind of like this, like the function of like the overeating for like the sense, like for example with the food thoughts. So it's like the vessel of the light. So it's like filling up. It's really what I wanted. I think I said today to someone about connection, but in terms of thinking about like the vessels of the light. So the food has light in it. It's like the food is like a vessel for the light. So it's like if I wanted more light, I'm eating more because I want like, but then it could make like bloat, bathroom, urinating, breathing, pressure, physically, it could be pain or gas. Like, so it's really like, then your vessel's full of shit, right? Versus the light. So we want to eat the food that's still going to bring light, or we don't want to eat too much, or like, in other words, we don't want to eat the bad feelings, and we're feeling like it's a separation between ourself and us. Like, there's like shit there, so it's not like really us. So stop here. I wish everybody all the best, and Shavua Tov with choosing ourselves, being conscious without self-consciousness, and getting out of all the chambers and levels of hell, and getting all the skills, social support, and meaning, and protection. Not double standards, like a standard, to have our grief processed, and to be able to see the goodness, and to choose to take actions, to make actions, and then God fills it up with light, so that we are very responsible and have a lot of romance and ambition in ourselves with how we live our life, so that we could be having a good time and not thinking we need someone for that it would make our relationships vulnerable or something like that, of what we learned, and that we could really express in new ways our real personality and character and traits, from limited to unlimited, and to be and in our honesty. All the best.